Chicago, a city that has seen protests, crackdowns, and tense standoffs between law enforcement and activists. But what unfolded this week outside a federal immigration facility in Broadview took that tension to an entirely new level. A CBS reporter covering immigration enforcement says she was targeted, not by protesters, not by angry residents, but by the very agents tasked with enforcing federal law.
Ball at one of our reporters outside the ICE facility in Broadview. Thankfully, she is okay, but she was just in her car outside that facility, and it was very quiet when it happened.
She claims an ICE officer fired a chemical munition directly at her pickup truck as she attempted to report from outside the facility. Yes, you heard that right. A journalist, someone whose job is to document events for the public, says she came under fire. The incident has sparked outrage, shock, and fear. If true, it raises some of the most serious questions possible. About press freedom, about law enforcement accountability, and about whether ICE has crossed a line even its critics didn't expect. The reporter's account, according to the CBS reporter, she was outside the ICE processing center in Broadview, Illinois. This facility has long been a flashpoint for immigrant rights protests. Activists regularly gather there, and journalists often arrive to cover arrests, transfers, and demonstrations. On this day, the reporter pulled up in her truck. She says ICE officers ordered her to leave the area. She did not leave immediately. After all, journalists are legally permitted to cover public activity from public spaces. Moments later, she claims, an ICE agent raised a launcher and fired. The projectile struck her truck. A white chemical powder sprayed across her windshield. She described burning sensations in her eyes and throat. She recognized it as a chemical munition, a pepper ball or similar crowd control round. Her truck, she says, was now marked, stained, and smoking with the powder. For her, it was a shocking moment. A line had been crossed. She wasn't a protester. She wasn't inside the facility. She wasn't obstructing law enforcement. She was doing her job. And in that moment, she says, ICE turned its weapons on her. The shockwave of the allegation when the reporter's account hit the airwaves, it spread fast. Broadview, just outside Chicago, is no stranger to immigration controversy, but the idea of a federal agent firing on a journalist instantly made this story national. Advocates rushed to condemn it. Press freedom groups warned of a chilling effect. If journalists can be fired upon for covering federal enforcement, what protection does the First Amendment truly offer? Activists said it confirmed what they've argued for years, that ICE is acting more like a militarized force than a law enforcement agency. On social media, the reaction was immediate. Some viewers were horrified. This is America, firing on reporters. Others defended ICE, claiming the reporter was too close to a restricted zone. The debate mirrored the larger national divide over immigration, authority, and civil rights. ICE's silence so far. ICE has remained largely silent. The agency has not confirmed or denied the incident. They have not released a statement identifying the officer involved or explaining why a chemical round would be deployed against a vehicle. That silence only fuels suspicion. If this was standard procedure, why not explain it? If it was a mistake, why not admit it? If it didn't happen, why not deny it outright? The absence of clarity is itself alarming, because when law enforcement won't answer questions about firing chemical munitions at reporters, trust collapses even further. The facility at Broadview, to understand the gravity of this event, you need to know about Broadview. The facility there is one of the key processing and detention centers in the Midwest. Immigrants facing deportation are regularly held there before being transferred. For activists, Broadview is a symbol of everything wrong with U.S. immigration enforcement. Weekly vigils are held outside its gates. Families gather there, sometimes for their last glimpses of loved ones before deportation. Tensions are always high, and federal agents know it. They patrol the perimeter, they monitor crowds, and they treat the area like a zone of potential unrest. But journalists have always been part of the scene, covering stories, interviewing families, documenting protests. That has never been considered a threat, until now. Press freedom under fire, the Allegation that ICE fired chemical munitions at a reporter's truck cuts to the heart of American democracy. The First Amendment guarantees freedom of the press. That protection exists precisely because the press often reports on things the government doesn't want revealed. If federal officers can intimidate, threaten, or even fire upon reporters without consequence, then that protection is meaningless. That's why advocacy groups are demanding answers. The Committee to Protect Journalists, the ACLU, and local press associations have all called for an investigation. Illinois state officials are also being pressured to step in. Because if this incident is swept under the rug, what precedent does it set? That journalists are fair game? That covering ICE comes with physical risks? That truth itself can be targeted? Patterns of militarization. This isn't an isolated concern. Over the past decade, ICE has steadily taken on a more militarized image. Tactical gear, assault-style weapons, armored vehicles, and now chemical munitions. In cities across the country, immigration enforcement has begun to look less like policing and more like military operations. Raids resemble combat missions. Streets are locked down. Families are split apart in scenes of chaos. For critics, the Broadview incident is just the latest example. A reporter's truck targeted with chemical fire? To them, it proves the agency is out of control. Community outrage, the local response has been intense. In Chicago, immigrant advocacy groups immediately rallied outside City Hall. They demanded answers from both ICE and federal leadership. Community leaders called it an attack not only on the press, but on the immigrant communities who rely on journalists to tell their stories. If reporters are silenced, who will shine light on what happens behind ICE's gates? Protests are already being planned, and some activists are warning that this could escalate, not only in Broadview but across the nation, as other cities take note. Legal fallout legally. The incident raises massive questions. If the allegation is true, the reporter could pursue a lawsuit against ICE for violation of civil rights. Firing a chemical round at a journalist could be seen as assault, intimidation, and violation of constitutional protections. Lawyers are also asking whether ICE agents even had authority to use crowd control weapons in that setting. Was there a legitimate threat, or was it retaliation for refusing to leave when ordered? The courts may soon be forced to decide, and that decision could set a precedent for how far immigration enforcement can go in controlling public space and in controlling the press. The symbolism of the incident. Step back for a moment and think about the imagery. A journalist's truck, white powder splattered across its windows, the stinging chemicals lingering in the air. That image tells a story all on its own. It's the story of power turned inward, of the state not just enforcing laws, but silencing witnesses. It's the story of a battle not just over immigration, but over truth itself. In that moment, Broadview wasn't just a detention facility. It was a battlefield, and the target wasn't an undocumented immigrant. It was a reporter. Closing. The ICE agent accused of firing chemical munitions at a reporter's truck in Broadview may have thought it was just one shot, but the shockwave is still spreading. If the claim is true, it's more than misconduct. It's a direct attack on the press, on transparency, on democracy itself. Chicago has seen many confrontations over immigration, but this one feels different. Because when weapons are turned on those who tell the story, no one is safe from silence. The reporter says she was burned, shaken, and stunned. Her truck may bear the stain of chemical powder. But her story, now in the headlines, ensures that the truth won't be erased so easily. And that is the power of a free press. Even when under fire,